Welcome to the More to Life podcast. I am your host, Elle Mace, and we are joined today by Dr Anna Colton, who is a clinical psychologist and author of How to Talk to Children About Food. Hello, Anna.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
This is our second attempt at the podcast.
It is our second attempt, yeah. We gassed so much last time that we didn't manage to record.
We ran out of time. But as we were saying this, I was like, that's what life's about. Life is about great connections and having a nice chin wag.
Absolutely. And actually, that's also what podcast is, isn't it?
Definitely. So, Anna, those are your titles, but could you just give us a bit more of an explanation as to what a clinical psychologist is?
Yes. Okay. So a clinical psychologist, it's a protected title. So you have to have done accredited training, the correct training to get the qualification and the title. And that means it's an undergraduate degree for 3 years. You have to have a 2-1 or a first. Then you have to work as an assistant psychologist or very similar for minimum of a year. It's usually longer. Then you have to apply to the clinical doctorate, which is like the clinical bit of medicine. Back in the day when medics had to do 3 years of academics and then 3 years of clinical psychology, it's that structure. And so the clinical bit is you apply, it's salaried and capped and regulated by the government. So it's very specific training. You get onto that's 3 years, and that is a mix of it. You're working in the NHS as a trainee clinical psychologist with an absolute ton of supervision. Your sessions are watched. How you do it is watched. You get a lot of feedback. You're in the NHS working 3 days a week. You're in university 2 days a week, case reports, essays, lectures, and a doctoral thesis, which is research towards the end. And you have to cover core areas and core therapeutic methods. And the core competencies usually cover adult and child and older adult, learning disability, and then you can specialise towards the end. So that's the basic training. And when you've done all of that and you've passed all of that, then you come out as a clinical psychologist with your training.
Fantastic.
That's it. So anybody who uses that title has done that training. You can't use that title without it. Whereas psychologist, literally anyone can use, even if you've done a psychology degree, you can call yourself a psychologist. It's not protected.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see that. And you do specialise in a topic. You specialise in eating disorders.
I have specialised in eating disorders actually since I was an assistant psychologist. So I worked at Springfield Hospital on the inpatient adolescent eating disorder unit as an assistant. And then the other bit of that job was at St George's in the eating disorder department. Mix of research and clinical. I've done that forever. And I still do. I do all sorts of other bits and bobs too. But yeah, I still do eating disorders. And it's kind of my mission, which is what my book was, to try and have a conversation that's more about prevention rather than waiting until you have to firefight treatment, which is notoriously difficult. Particularly in anorexia, it's incredibly difficult to work with anorexia. Unbelievably rewarding when people get better, but there's absolutely no guarantee because of the way the brain changes and the way the body changes and how powerful the illness is. I really try to do as much prevention, have as many conversations around prevention and early intervention as possible, because that's the only prognostic factor that we know makes any difference.
Which actually means starting with very young children.
It means really starting with yourself.
Yeah.
And it's really uncomfortable. And often on socials, I feel like I sound like I'm blaming parents. I'm really not. I'm also a parent. I had 4 kids. And one of my greatest fears were that they'd develop an eating disorder, especially given what I do for a living. But you have to look at what food baggage you carry, because we all carry some. We live in this culture, which is predominantly diet culture, where all the messages around food and body shape and fitness and exercise and worth and value as a human being are linked to shape and size. So we've all, I think, grown up thinking that this is important. So we all have baggage. Some people have had a history of eating disorders. Some people have been bullied about their appearance. Some people have just grown up believing that some foods are frightening and others aren't. And we carry our baggage. And unless we understand what our baggage is and unpack it, we're destined to pass it on to our kids.
And it really is as clear as that, isn't it?
It really is as clear as that. And that isn't because I want to blame parents. It's just a fact. It's just what I've seen over 25 years in practice, because we have to feed our children and wean our children and then do meal times. And our stuff comes through. Kids learn by watching what you do, not by listening to what you say. They will listen to what you say too, but do as I do is much more what kids do rather than do as I say.
Yeah. And of course, there is the opposite side of this, where if you do have 2 parents who have happy and healthy relationships with food, you can't protect what your child's hearing at school. around body shaming and how to eat?
No, you absolutely can't. But if you've got two parents with good, stable relationships with food, then there's so much protection in that. Because if a child comes home to two parents who've got solid body image, solid relationship with food, and says, this is what I was taught, a parent will be able to say, do you know what? In this house, that's not what we believe. Or that person is saying that because they're feeling really insecure about themselves. Or, yeah, we live in a bit of a rubbish world at the moment where shape and size seems to be the communication around worth. But that's actually not right. We need to think about personality and, what the reason your friends love you, because your friends don't love you because of the clothes size you wear. Your friends love you because, you're funny and you're loyal and you're loving and you're kind and you're great fun to hang out with, all these things. So we can never protect our kids completely, but if parents have a really good relationship with food, they can very decisively and actively reject the messaging.
Yeah. And that is so important, isn't it? That actually that your child is able to communicate that as well when they're back at home. So your children aren't just picking this stuff up at school at other people's houses, but then not communicating it.
Absolutely. And language is super important. We underestimate how important language is often, I think. So the words we use to describe food or describe other people, when you say to a friend, oh my God, you look just so amazing, you've lost so much weight. Actually, what a child learns in that interaction is losing weight is good, it's aspirational, it's what I need to do. Ideally, we really don't want to set them up like that.
No, and people still comment like that all the time.
All the time.
They can't help it.
They can't help it. And actually, because we have been taught to believe that weight loss is a good thing.
Yeah, even if someone deep down knows that weight loss is not needed for that person, there will still be praise there.
Usually, yes. And then it's tricky if you think someone looks quite poorly. How do you say it? What do you say? And you put a lot of effort into thinking about how you might say something about that or whether you should say something about that. But I think we should put as much effort in across the board to say less.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I remember going through this transition myself from having disordered eating and eating disorders to then understanding actually my worth wasn't on my body. And I stopped trying to judge other people as well, because having an eating disorder, judgment was very high on other people's bodies. And I remember like almost catching myself in the moment to like maybe comment on someone's body and having to work really hard to be like, no, stop it. What's the benefit? There's no benefit there to commenting on the body.
That is amazing, though, that you got to the place where you could say, hang on a minute, I'm going to intervene before it comes out of my mouth, because that's actually where the really difficult bit is. It's the pause before you say something to go, I'm going to change what I think I want to say.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so over the last 25 years, then.
It sounds so old.
No, you're as young as you feel.
True that.
Over the last 25 years, what would you say is maybe the top one or two catalysts for disordered eating?
Oh my goodness, top one or two. That
Big
is such
question.
a hard question. That's such a hard question. I don't think they're always, when I talk to young people, I tend to say disordered eating usually arises from the desire, or eating disorders arise from or have a large component of trying to deal with overwhelming or unmanageable emotions. You feel rubbish, you don't know what to do, you can't control it, the feelings are very intense, really distressing. You discover that actually usually restricting your intake makes you feel a little bit more in control. I need to say in the moment only, in the moment only, because either you get hooked on it or you end up binging and then you feel really out of control. But whatever happens, if you carry on down that pathway, you are less in control than you think. So there's usually a kind of a feelings component, always a feelings component, where there's a lot of distress and using food becomes a way to manage it, whether that is comfort eating or binging or restricting. Food is effective in the moment. It takes your mind totally off what the distress is about. So there's that. But I've said it before, I'll say it again, we are receiving endless messages about the importance of thin, and never more so actually than in the last couple of years with the explosion of GLP-1s, where they're not regulated really. And so anyone can take them irrespective of their medical condition or their start weight in particular. And so I think the value of thin in the last couple of years with GLP-1s has really taken a massive retrograde step back a couple of decades. So we receive all of those messages. There's also a lot of messaging around at the moment about foods being dangerous or toxic or really super bad for you and causing disease. And so there's quite a lot of anxiety being put on food. I realize I haven't done my top two, but my top two, I think I will go for the managing difficult emotions. Trauma. I can't not say trauma, because trauma and eating disorders, disordered eating, are really often closely linked. But again, that's about, your feelings and what's happened to you. So there's often a big link with trauma. There's often a big link with the society we live in. And there is a massive link between how we're brought up and the beliefs around food and eating that we're gifted from our parents.
Do you think the language around food and like dinner table conversations has improved? Maybe it's just improved in my world because I'm a conscious being in this area. But my parents would have grown up with, do you know how lucky you are to have food on your plate? Eat what you've got. Are we still seeing these messages a lot now?
So I think there's been a real reduction actually in families eating meals together.
Yes.
Which personally I think is a bit problematic, because that's how children learn, is by watching. So if kids see their parents really enjoying food and tucking into a whole variety of different foods, they learn that a whole variety of different foods are safe and enjoyable. Whether or not they choose to taste them, it's slightly different, but there's so much learning there. And if meal times are around connection and bonding and having fun together, and they're not about you must eat this or you must clean your plate, then it's a very different setup and it's much more protective. So I think actually we've got a reduction in family meals, which I'd love to see reversed, although it's not for everybody and not everybody's lifestyle can do it. I think I should preface everything I say with, there is an individual component to all of this. And this isn't to blame or shame anyone for their choices or what their life, the circumstances they find themselves in. But if I could wave my magic wand, more people than not would find some time to eat as a family. However that looked, it doesn't matter. But I think there's different messages. I think I grew up with, there are starving children in the world. And I do remember saying to my parents, I'm going to put my food in an envelope and send it. What am I going to do? Yeah. Okay, I don't understand the link here.
Yeah.
I think food is still used to reward or to console, or sometimes to punish. You hit your sister, there's no pudding tonight. It literally makes no sense. So I think we still see a lot of that. We see quite a lot of anxiety around making sure your kids eat healthily. And there's a load of messaging in the media and social media about the importance of that and how necessary it is. And almost you can do real damage to your children if you don't get this right, which I think is incredibly harmful messaging. So I'm not a fan of that either. So I think there's a lot of tricky messaging around food. It may be slightly different to when you or I grew up. Some of it will still, depending on what people grew up with. If people grew up with food poverty, the messaging around food will be very different to people who've grown up with food abundance. There are individual circumstances, but I think there's a lot of very difficult messaging, slightly different maybe to when I was younger, but similarly difficult.
Yeah. And as a mum of young kids, I'm definitely seeing this in terms of the stress and the fear over what we're feeding our kids and the judgment.
I was literally about to say, and the judgment is so toxic.
Really hope you're enjoying the More to Life podcast and all the incredible guests that we have on. We also have plenty of other exciting things happening in 2026. The Elevate Day Wellness Festival is back on June the 12th. We also have a Spanish retreat and another retreat in the beautiful countryside of Devon. If you are interested, simply pop us an email or find us on Instagram at @IamElmace to find out more. I grew up on fish fingers, and now I'm in conversations where parents are feeling shamed for giving their kids fish fingers.
I love fish fingers. Not that's what we're talking about, but I still love a good fish finger and some tartar sauce.
Yeah.
There is a place for every food in a balanced diet. I get a lot of backlash for that kind of comment, because a lot of parents will say to me, but not every food is food. Sometimes it's made out of chemicals. And yes, sometimes it is heavily processed, but it's still food, because ultimately, if you were faced with no food or an ultra-processed food, your child needs the energy, they need the fuel. So yes, it's not ideal for the entirety of their diet, but it is actually some sustenance, some fuel, with different nutritional content. Yeah. But we can't just dismiss certain food groups in their entirety.
Yeah. And because what's definitely played out in my life is when I was younger and I did remove food groups or certain foods, I just wanted them more and more.
That's what we know. That's what all the evidence shows. It's what the research shows. When we when we take out a food group or a food, I'm never eating sugar is bad. I'm not having any sugar, or I'm going off chocolate, no chocolate. People binge because the brain goes, oh my goodness, I'm deprived. And when it feels deprived, it increases the cravings and that leads towards a binge. So actually, that's not a helpful thing to do. Now, if there's an allergy or a medical condition or in certain religious circumstances, it's very different. But then the communication to your brain is actually not about deprivation, because if you have a horrible allergic reaction, you feel terrible. So the deprivation doesn't kick in there.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as well, there's two ways to tackle this with children. You can go down the fear monger scaring and what might be an easier life for you at the time with maybe bribery just to get them out the door. Or maybe not when they're super young, but it's communication, isn't it? It's actually really communicating to your child the psychological aspect of their relationship to food, which is never spoken about. And then nutrition, but not delivered in a scary way.
Completely. But the other thing is, and the point that I always really want people to think about is, it is not a child's responsibility to think about the nutrition content of their food.
Yes.
That is a parent or a caregiver's role. Finished. It's not a child's responsibility to say, oh no, I mustn't eat that. It's not terribly healthy. Certainly not in early or middle childhood. In fact, not for a long time. But when I say to parents, why do you want your child to know all this nutritional information? I get a reply, which is so that they know how to make healthy choices. It's not their job. They've got all sorts of cognitive, social, emotional development to be doing, to be getting on with. Their brain is trying to grow and learn about the world, not make healthy choices about food. That's just not their job.
Yeah. Your job is to provide options and choices, and then they can have the autonomy. And that's another thing, autonomy, isn't it? For a child, it's so
huge.
important.
So important. I don't know if you've heard of the division of responsibility. Does that ring a bell? Yeah. So that's first put in the literature by Ellen Satter, who is a specialist pediatric dietitian, where most of the research has been done about how to create the best environment for kids to eat well. And it's called the division of responsibility, just for any listeners who don't know it, which is that you as a parent are responsible for the food you buy and bring into the home, the food you prep for a meal time and serve, and the time of meals and snacks. And the child is in charge of what they eat, how much they eat of that, and indeed whether they eat. So if they're really not hungry, then they're really not hungry. We want them to listen to their bodies. That's the division of responsibility. If you follow that, it's so straightforward because you choose. Do you want to buy Cocoa Pops in the supermarket or not? If you don't want to buy them, then there's no debate in your home. Don't buy them.
Yeah.
So straightforward.
Yeah. And I think in line with that is that kind of serve the options up on the table. And that transition for me where it was always like dinner and then pudding. And then when I was trying to experiment with my children to see if they were going to eat better, etc., by putting all food on the table. So they literally had their pudding with their main. And it does work.
It's so transformational, isn't it?
Yes. My kids went for the pasta and the bolognese, and they did dip in and out of the pudding side, but it was great.
It's great. And it just completely removes negotiation.
Yeah.
Completely removes bribing, cajoling. It all goes. Parents often say to me, yeah, but all they're going to do is eat their pudding. And it's no, you choose how much the portion is you put on the table. So if you're going to put, let's say, a chocolate chip cookie, you can put a really small one there.
Yeah.
That's not going to be enough for a meal. You have a lot more, you're not as out of control as you feel. So you can do it side by side. And if you've never done it before, the first few times, a child may well go, oh my God, this is amazing. They won't say that, but feel that and eat all of the muffin or whatever it is first. But more often than not, they actually don't. They go between the two. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed that with your kids, did you? That they'll suddenly have a bite of this and a bite of that.
Oh, absolutely go between the two. And now I'm really relaxed about that. The other day I served up a bowl of fruit before their dinner because they were starving, hadn't prepped it. And I was like, no, it's fine. You can have your fruit and yogurt first, which would go completely against what a famous lady has said in her book around glucose.
Oh, yes.
God forbid serve sugar before anything else. You can go to prison for that.
And fruit is put in that category, but it so misses the point of fruit because fruit has so many essential vitamins and minerals and nutrients and all the very different colours of fruit. Natural sugar is totally different kind of sugar. It's just madness that we're at this stage.
Yeah. And I think it's also madness that there is all this information out there which is incorrect, because also judging with that book, which if I had read that book with my disordered eating life, I would have followed it to a T. Then
Your recovery would have been
so much harder. I then read it. I think I flicked in and out of it, but I came back to it after my recovery and just felt completely gobsmacked by so much of it. Because, for example, if you are a parent who is quite stressed by what their child is eating and you read that, you won't serve your child porridge, right? Because you'll want to go for protein, something more protein first, or fiber, whatever. So that's just crazy.
yes.
That is a message out there.
Yes. But there is also the belief, I don't know if it's one that you share, that there are right and wrong foods at different times of day, as though your digestion knows that it's morning. And so in morning you eat porridge and in the evening you eat meat and your veg. But actually, there's nothing wrong with eating a savoury breakfast or a cereal lunch or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And you know, I know that I feel really strongly about this. I believe it's all about the marketing of products. The fact that we've been led to believe that cereal, toast, croissants, or breakfast, and then different, a sandwich is, or maybe some soup or a salad, maybe lunch, and then a main meal. I mean, I'm much more likely to open the fridge and eat last night's leftovers for breakfast than I am to have a bowl of cereal. Almost never happen. I don't eat a bowl of cereal, really, frankly.
Yeah.
It's much more likely that I'll go fancy a bowl of porridge in the evening and I'll have wanted something much more sustaining for breakfast. Yeah. And there's no right or wrong. And this idea that there are the right foods for different times of day, that there is the right way to eat, the wrong way to eat, the right order. And I do know there is research into fueling and maximum energy sustenance. But that's not for most people. It's not actually relevant or necessary for most of us.
Yeah, yeah. You've got to tune into what your body is wanting itself and actually listen to its cues, and when it's hungry and when it's not. If you're not hungry at lunchtime, wait a bit longer. Or if you are hungry at 11, 12, eat your lunch.
So again, I personally am totally comfortable with all of that, and that's how I run my life.
Yeah.
It's harder with children, right? Because actually the time that if you're going to eat as a family and you've got younger kids, you'll end up eating earlier and you might be hungry again a little bit later, but you can work around it. You can be creative with it. It doesn't have to be so rigid. It doesn't have to be seen in a very binary right or wrong way. It can be so much more fluid. And that is where the division of responsibility really helps. And also the way that we talk to kids about nutrition is super unhelpful, I think, a lot of the time.
Yeah, and the praise that goes into a child eating a certain food.
Yeah.
And then the shame when they eat also a certain food.
Yeah. Or the kind of, oh, that's not very good for you. You shouldn't be having that. Or I'm going to tell school they mustn't allow you to have that. It's really tricky because eating is, I know it sounds such a stupid thing to say, right? But we have to eat or we die. Now, food is so much more than fuel. But it is also fuel, which is why it's so absolutely terrifying when your child develops an eating disorder, because it is a survival risk. So it really is. But a child, again, they don't need to be thinking about that. If you provide foods at the right times, or at times when, you know, it's a meal time or a snack, or if you allow them to say, I'm really hungry, and you can feed them responsively, which is in tune with their needs. They come home from school and say, I'm super hungry. And instead of saying, you have to wait to supper, say, why don't we have some banana and some peanut butter or whatever it may be right now? And then there'll be dinner in a couple of hours. Then there's no drama. You don't actually have to hammer nutritional teaching into them in early to middle childhood.
What's your take then on the language around eat this, it'll make you really strong, and eat this, it'll make you fast, or it'll make you read better?
Oh, it's so hard, isn't it? I'm a big believer in really accurate nutritional teaching. My light's just gone off. Carrots have a lot of vitamin D and that helps your sight. It's true. That's what the research shows. I have literally no problem with it whatsoever. I was brought up with, it'll help you see in the dark. It's actually, it's true. So go for it. And that's much more helpful than they're healthy. Because what does healthy mean? It's actually completely nebulous. It's just code for good.
Yeah.
So when you say eat this, it's healthy, it's code for eat this, it's good. And when you say don't eat that, it's unhealthy, it's code for don't eat that, it's bad. It doesn't tell you why. It doesn't help a child or an adult understand what's in it. It literally is a meaningless term. I get so much pushback for that particular.
Really?
Yeah, because how are they meant to know how they eat healthily if we can't use the term healthy and unhealthy? And I'm like, by being really accurate. We want to eat, the reason that we talk about a rainbow on a plate of veg is because every different coloured veg has different minerals and vitamins and nutrients in, and you want as many of those as you can get because it makes your body at its strongest, and it helps us in all sorts of ways.
Yeah, so difficult, isn't it? Because I think for me, my kids are so young now, and I don't, like you said, they don't know about nutrition. But at some point, I want to get in there with nutrition when they're much older, before they try and figure it out themselves in a way, i.e., social media. Because I didn't know about nutrition when I was a teenager, but I was told carbs will make you fat and carbs are bad. And so that was me gone. I didn't eat a carb in sight for years. So I want to
Whereas
try and,
actually, they're such an important
oh,
source of fuel,
it was
and they
like
should make up the bulk of the diet.
so much misinformation.
So much misinformation. You're not gonna be able to wait until they get social media. School is going to come in and start it.
And our school doing it well?
So it's really difficult, and I am not absolutely not blaming schools or teachers
No.
because the direction comes from the government. Currently, it's not. Anyone in the eating disorder world will tell you the direction at the moment is poor. It is all about healthy and unhealthy. It's go home and see what's in your cupboards and look at the labels and work out what's good and what's bad. It's horrific. It's horrific at the moment. It's just so bad. And kids come home with worksheets to look in cupboards at home and to categorize foods and to go back and say what's healthy and what's unhealthy. It comes from the government policy, which is aimed at reducing childhood obesity.
Yeah.
This is not a way that we teach about nutrition. This is not the way that we create a good relationship with food. And this is not the teacher's fault.
No.
But it is what's currently being taught. So as a parent, you're going to have to jump in really hard, really fast, really early and say, that's not what we believe in this house. That's not what we do in this house. And you might have to go and talk to a teacher about it. Lots in my book on what to say to a teacher.
Yeah. I got the email saying we're going to be weighing your daughter's class.
No,
I know. I was straight in on that. Absolutely no way.
there isn't actually good evidence that it's helpful either as a strategy. There isn't the evidence to back up that strategy. I always refused with my kids.
My child at the time was 5. I am going to do absolutely everything to not expose my 5-year-old to a pair of scales. That is that. Because at one point she's going to go to a friend's house and she's going to see them, and then she's going to understand what it's all about. But I'm going to prevent that for as long as possible.
So all you have to make sure you do is just write to school and say, I do not give consent for my child to be weighed.
No.
Please confirm you have received this email.
Yeah.
You must do. That's how you do it, and you are well within your right to do it.
Yeah. That's exactly what I did. I think they do it. So she was 5, then they do it again, which I think maybe like 10 or 11, which I just think 10, 11-year-olds know what's going on. They'll be comparing each other in that moment. It's so wrong.
It's terrible. And of course, girls at 10 and 11 are often heading into puberty. So they're meant to be gaining weight.
Yeah.
That's healthy.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that doesn't get taught terribly much, that girls need to gain both weight and body fat to be able to ovulate and then to have periods. So girls do get a prepubertal girls do have a prepubertal weight spurt. It's normal, it's necessary, it's really important. It's much healthier than not gaining any weight as they head into puberty.
Yeah. And so just while we're like not calling people out, but we've touched on it, Joe Wicks, he has obviously done the Killer Bar recently. But something else that I read in Joe Wicks years ago when I was pregnant with my first child was that he does not give his children snacks. Now, this is 5 or 6 years ago, so I don't know if this is still the case for him. But a friend of mine also read that and then stopped giving her child snacks, her toddler snacks, because she read it in Joe Wicks's book. It was either in his book or his blog or something. Another example of like just taking advice from influencers.
Yeah, and not wanting to get too into Joe Wicks because I think it's nuanced. His intentions are good. I really do think that he's done a lot of good stuff. So I'm not going to rain on that particular parade. However, I think there are some tricky communications that aren't terribly helpful and aren't actually evidence-based and aren't right. And the thing is that little children don't have very big stomachs, so they can't eat just 3 meals and be done. They do often need a little bit less, a little bit more often. And you have to go with your child. You have to, because ultimately the whole aim, if we can put it like this, and you might disagree, so I'd be really interested to hear, but for me, ideally, what we have to do from the moment our kids are young, and we do it across the board, is get them to a place where when they leave home and have to fend for themselves, they can do it independently, healthily as an adult, with knowledge and understanding, and be with a good enough relationship with food or sport or study or money or whatever it is, every domain, that they can live a full and independent life. So we do have to help our kids develop that, but we don't help our kids develop that by teaching them not to listen to their body, by teaching them to ban certain foods, by teaching them to restrict, by teaching them to label, by teaching them to be anxious. So actually what we want when our kids are little, what we want is that we feed what it's called is responsive feeding. You teach them to listen to their body, and you as a parent respond to their needs. Now, that doesn't mean that they can snack all day long and never have a meal properly. But actually, often 7 in the morning till 12 is far too long without a snack. Their stomach just can't hold enough food to give enough energy for that. So I think there's no blanket rule. And I think no snacks when you were quite young is quite tricky.
Yeah, because I think the logic behind that was if I don't give them snacks, they'll eat more of their meal.
That's not what the research bears out.
Which was what his point was.
That's not what the research bears out. But we do know if you're going to give a massive snack 20 minutes before dinner, they're unlikely to eat their dinner. So you just have to be balanced a couple of hours, 2.5 hours, and work out the size and what's in the snack. But actually, no snacks is really hard. Indeed, I can't do 3 meals, no snacks. As an adult, that's just not the way my brain and my body work.
No, I am a big snacker.
Yeah.
My dentist is not so happy about it, but that's okay. You just get a special toothpaste like I've got, and then it helps with you snacking. Apparently. Yeah, for me, I have really low blood pressure, and so low blood sugar levels. So if I go longer than 2 hours or 3 hours, I have to have something. Again, it just shows you all of these diets that are out there and all of these regimes and plans. They're not just, everyone just can't do one. To be honest, no one can do any because we know that they don't work. But they're sold to you as these are simple and easy and you should be able to do this.
But they're not.
They're not.
They're not. And they're not intuitive. And I know quite a lot of people say, oh, you can't just muddle up, I think, intuitive eating with being permission to eat what you want when you want, irrespective. That's not actually intuitive eating. But that is ideally, we would all eat reasonably intuitively. We'd listen to our body, we'd respond to our needs, our emotional needs, as well as our physical needs. And that includes not living on Mackie D's and ready meals, right? But it also includes, occasionally, they're fine as part of an overall balanced diet.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, that comes back to, if you then restrict them, you then want them more.
You then want them more. And the reality is, look, nuance is really hard cognitively. We know that. It's much easier to go, this is right, this is wrong, this is black, this is white, this is good, this is bad. I'm going to cut that and I'm going to have that. That actually is much easier for cognition, for the mind to get its head round. It's very clear. And so being more nuanced is more confusing for our minds, but it's a much less psychologically vulnerable position. You're quite vulnerable if you're very binary, very black and white, wrong and right. Because if you suddenly end up eating something that's on your bad list, what do you do? Whereas if you're more flexible in your thinking and you can cope with a bit more nuance, although it's harder initially, it's actually a much more protective place to be psychologically.
Being more flexible.
Flexible thinking.
Flexible and trusting yourself, which for some people is just so hard.
So hard because often we're not. That's the thing about, how you raise children, isn't it? Do we teach our kids, one, that they can trust their body, but two, do we show them that we trust them to trust their body?
That's massive, isn't it?
It's massive.
That's massive.
But it's so important.
Does my mummy trust me to make a decision?
Yeah. Does my mummy trust that when I say I'm full, I'm full?
Yeah.
Now, there's never that kind of conversation, or not never, but there's rarely that kind of conversation. But also, that's ultimately what the communications are all about.
Yeah. Yeah. And the opposite. Can my mummy trust me that I'm still hungry?
Exactly.
I'm not full. Exactly. I hear that a lot. You've got to be full. You've had loads.
Yeah, surely you can't still be hungry. You're like, oh my goodness, this is such a tricky communication. Whereas actually, I don't know about you, but certainly one, if not two of mine, would eat loads for a few days and then eat really or very little for a few days, and it all balanced out, and it was just their body.
Absolutely. That is exactly how it rolls. And they could eat loads for breakfast and not a lot for dinner, or vice versa. And what I've also noticed in one of my kids is things will change every day. One minute he loves pasta, the next minute he absolutely hates it. If I put cheese on sometimes, oh my gosh, like literally there is all hell breaks loose. The next day he's pouring it on his food.
And its appetite fluctuates. And I often say to parents, do you want to eat the same thing every day? Do you? And usually they're like, no, some days I want a sandwich and some days I want this and something. I'm like, your child's exactly the same. And are you equally hungry at every meal every day? No, sometimes I don't fancy, sometimes I'm ravenous. It's exactly the same.
And when you chuck emotions into that, sometimes I'm anxious, sometimes I'm not.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm angry. And actually, yeah, if you look at younger kids, when they are having breakfast, there's quite often been a squabble with a sibling.
Yeah. But also breakfast, it sounds a really silly thing to say. I'm sure everyone knows, breaking the fast. That's what breakfast is, right? Break fast.
Yeah.
And they haven't eaten since 6 o'clock the night before. So they're also super hungry. Their body is really needing fuel because they don't go that long at any other point, only when they're asleep, right? So often you get kids in the morning who are quite irritable because their blood sugar is low. They're really super hungry. And also, as you say, when you're anxious, the physiology of anxiety is that our digestive system goes on the back burner if we're anxious, and we feel a bit sick and we get a bit of an upset tummy. So actually, if a child is anxious, they're much less likely to eat well. And if that anxiety is around food, because meal times are a battle, they're really not going to eat so well. So it is really, in some ways, it's really straightforward. And in some ways, it's so tricky and so nuanced.
Yeah, it does. It sounds simple, doesn't it? And I think time is big here, isn't it? If you're going to try and transition out of being a bit of a strict, controlling parent with food to trying this approach.
Baby steps.
Baby steps and time.
Just one at a time, one tiny thing a week, or maybe every 2 weeks. And don't beat yourself up because you've learned it for decades. You're not going to change it in the blink of an eye overnight.
Yeah.
Having that self-compassion is so important to go, you know what, I'm making a real effort here. I'm not going to get it right every day, but that's okay. I'm on the right step.
Yeah. And as you touched on right at the start, look at your own relationship with
food. It's so important. It's so important because we do all have baggage. So unpack it and don't gift it to your kids.
Yeah. That is my biggest fear, as we spoke earlier, is my children have an eating disorder. But also I know, as someone that had it for many years, did I do that? Will always be my question.
You're so aware. That's where it starts. Once you're aware, you've got all sorts of choices. It's when we're unaware. And lots of people are, because a lot of us don't think our relationship with food is tricky, that we eat the way we eat, and that's fine. And that for some people, the beliefs are in line with society. And currently, societal beliefs are quite anxious and quite toxic.
Yeah.
But if you feel you're in line with that, why would you question it? But actually, it does need questioning.
Yeah. And I bet you see loads of parents who are convinced that they fine. And then once you delve in, they have that aha moment of, oh, that's actually not okay.
Laura, I have the tricky stuff of, I think what I'm hearing from your child or the way you describe it, I wonder whether you too have disordered eating.
Yeah.
It's tricky. This is not an ideal thing you want to hear when you're a parent.
Yeah. I've just remembered a moment where a mum came up to me because her daughter started to have disordered eating, but I was trying to talk her away from this whole health thing, but she was convinced that she was doing the right thing by helping the daughter by being more healthy. And I was trying to say to her, I think you should drop the health and look at the emotions and everything. Yeah. But she just kept coming back to, yeah, okay, and we've done some meal plans. She just kept coming back to it. And I was like, you're not listening.
Or you're not understanding.
Yeah, because you still are hooked to, she needs more health in
healthy food.
Yeah, and she needs more of a plan and she needs more of structure. I said she needs a cuddle, babe. Your daughter needs a cuddle.
And you've got to teach your kids. It's really, the stuff we have to teach our kids is big and it's hard. Yeah. We have to teach them the names and lots of different feelings and emotions, because a good emotional vocabulary is protective. We've got to teach them that distress, and this is so unsexy, that distress is an inevitable part of life, and they're going to feel it and they're going to cope. If we try and get rid of all their distress, one, they think they need to get rid of it. Two, they don't learn that they're going to be fine. And three, it becomes a drama. And then they have to find other ways of managing it rather than learning that this is the name of the feeling. And sometimes you feel really low or really cross, and you can talk to a parent, or you can talk to a friend or a grandparent or whatever, or you can go for a walk outside or play or hit a pillow. It just doesn't really matter. Yeah. But there are lots of different ways, and you're going to be all right, and it's going to pass. Because no emotion stays forever. None.
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass.
Too shall pass. And you have been fantastic to chat to. Where can everybody find your socials and websites and books?
So I'm at The Food Psychologist on Instagram and TikTok. I'm more active at the moment on Insta. I'm Dr Anna Colton on LinkedIn. And my book is available on Audible worldwide and in all sorts of countries, or in hard copy and Kindle.
Amazing.
Amazon is easy, and independent bookshops.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I feel like there needs to be a part 2 to this.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Always up for part 2.
Yeah, we focused heavily on parenting and children, and actually there's still a massive conversation as to adults here.
Teens, actually.
Teens. Oh, teens. Teens just make my whole heart like throb when I talk about teens.
Yeah, that's where you see the proper eating disorders usually emerge. Not proper, but that's where you see the eating disorders emerge usually.
Yeah.
It's adolescence.
We'll be back. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed listening to this episode, then please head over to give us a rating. We would really, really appreciate that. And as a return, send us a screenshot of your rating, and we will send you a free 45-minute hypnosis for absolute daily motivation. This is a must listen to every day in order to create your best future self.